Hi, Dan.
Hi, how are you?
Oh my gosh, Dan. I have to start off here, Dan Cummins, by telling you a story because we go so far back, and I don't know if you know this, but back in the day here in Indianapolis, you would stop
Yeah,
by the Smiley Morning Show, and
yeah.
Dan, you don't know this, but you actually got banned from our show.
I do remember not going back there, but I don't remember why. What happened?
Listen, I've been racking my brain about what you did. I just remember after you were there that we
Yeah,
got called into the general manager's office, and it was around that time when Justin Timberlake had showed everybody Janet Jackson her
yeah,
boob,
yeah,
and radio took the brunt of it, right? And we
yeah. I
got
do
called
remember
into
that.
the
Yep, I remember
office.
that time.
Yeah, we got called in and he was like, "That guy, never again, never again in this building." We were like, "Oh, we love Dan." Like,
That is hilarious. I love finding that out now because I do remember going there a few times, and I remember Smiley. Like, I remember he was kind of like loose. You guys like. I remember him drinking in the studio and stuff, and it was like a real conversational flow. And then, yeah, I kept going back to Indianapolis and never went back to that show. And I was like, huh, that's weird.
it was
But
super awkward
yeah,
because you remember, sweet Ruth Ann at Crackers Comedy Club, and we would always have to be like, "Oh man, we're already booked." we, we we would never be like, yeah, so Dan can't come back.
that is hilarious. Yeah, I must have obviously crossed some line for the GM. Oh my gosh! But I do remember that era that yeah, everybody was worried about getting in a lot of trouble and having their show punished by the FCC or whatever. I mean, that was the time when Bob and Tom blew up because they started gobbling up markets where other people had gotten kicked out of
Yeah.
because they weren't, as risque. And yeah, that was a weird time.
It was, and it's interesting to think about that. And as a comedian, how does it compare to, the current times? Because I think we're also sort of in a time where like anybody can get canceled for anything. You can pull something up from 20 years ago, and all of a sudden you're a horrible person and you need to go away. I mean, is it is it harder even now?
It's different where it's like, for me, with I don't know, stand up and podcasting, it's more free where, I am best when I can be a little looser and be a little more irreverent. And so I appreciate having the freedom to do that. But you do always run the risk of, yeah, you just don't know how the culture is going to shift. And then all of a sudden, your opinion is horrible. You're a monster. Um, that is a little weird. Look, I try not to think about it too much and just think about you know what, just be yourself and and hope it works out. But yeah, it is a little weird. Well, and what's weird is I don't think very many people have truly gotten canceled. But what happens is if they get in trouble, for some scandal, and then they go back out. Now all of a sudden they have a very specific audience that tends to be the extreme far right, and I'm like, oh, that's got to be weird. I've seen it happen with a few comics that have to only have that audience. Have to, that's the bed you've made now. I don't know. It is strange times.
Well, and I mean, back in the day when we were having you in studio, certainly life was different, and you also, are, talking about. And I should mention the reason you're here today, Dan Cummins, trying to get better. Your fourth stand-up special is out, and it's on YouTube, which is. I love the freedom that comedians that I've cheered on for so many years have to like not need a network or somebody to greenlight you, that you can
Yeah.
have this control over yourself. It's wonderful. But you also talk about in the in the special that you're trying to be a little more careful these days because your kids are at an age where they're like, not cool, dad.
Oh yeah. 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 It was where I talked about them in my act more when they were younger. But then their friends at school, started to find out as they got older that their, dad was a comic and their dad would talk about them. And so there are definitely so many funny stories I've kind of had to sit on where, would it get a bunch of laughs in the audience? Yes. But would it cause backlash for my kids? Also, yes. So I'm like, okay, I'll wait until they're adults and they can like laugh at it too, because now they're looking back at it.
And you do talk about your dogs. I want to get into that. In addition to the KJ Today Show, I'm the kitty correspondent for Pet Pals TV. So I enjoyed the
Yeah.
fact that the dogs have made the special. And how are you doing with baby birding Penny, and just embracing the fact that you are a crazy dog man now?
I'm definitely leaning more into it. I recently, actually, with Penny and Gigi, I spent way too much money online buying those little costumes where the arms move back and forth in the front. Those things crack me up so much. Where like you can make your dog like a little UPS driver or a banjo player or just like whatever. Oh my God, it makes me laugh so hard to dress them up in those little outfits. So I am fully a weird dog person and don't even care anymore what people think about it.
Are you touring as much these days? Is it hard for you to be away from, the kids and the dogs and the wife?
Well, actually, it's yeah, funny you bring that up. I just pushed my tour for next year. It's interesting how you can monetize different things now with like podcasting and stuff, and you don't have to travel like I used to, in order to make money. And I love stand up, but I am taking next year off the road just to be home more and to just be around the family more. And I think after that, I don't think I'll probably tour like I used to anymore, where when I was coming up and, there wasn't other options, that was the only way I could make money. And so I'm doing, 30, 35, probably close to 40 weekends a year sometimes, grinding the road out. And it's a weird life. And some guys are built for it and they love being gone all the time. I love stand up, but I don't love being gone all the time. So I'm definitely going to try and balance it better going forward.
You know, it, I love the success that you've had with your podcast, and we have a lot of podcasters. It's such a wonderful world. It was so different, when I transitioned. I still do, radio and TV and stuff, but I'm over here in
Yeah.
podcast land so much more, and it's such a welcoming community. But there's so many podcasts out there. Like when you started, did you have any idea that you would end up where you are? I mean, you've got two podcasts that are always up there in on the top of the charts.
Yeah, I feel just super lucky. I mean, I feel lucky that I got in when I did with podcasting, because I got in, I mean, I tried some podcasts, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago that didn't take. Then the one that took, I was like over 7 years ago. And I'm glad I jumped in then as opposed to in the last 1 or 2 years, because now all the celebrities have jumped into the podcast pool and it's gotten way more competitive. But I am so thankful I figured that out just ahead of that and got enough of an audience to be able to make a living with, because, it really is a fun world. You build a different kind of connection. As like with radio, like when you're talking to people every week, that's so different than releasing an album every 2 years or something. I mean, you really become people's like friends in a sense. You're part of their lives, and I'm grateful to be in that pool.
And I feel you on that. I mean, it's like, come on, Jason Bateman, Rob Lowe. I can't compete with you. This is not fair.
I know. Every day it feels like there's another huge, celebrity where I'm like, oh my gosh, get out of here. Go back to making movies and things. Like, leave us alone. Don't eat this up too.
This was our world.
Exactly. Like, don't you have enough?
Speaking of movies, we always talk pop culture on this show. And are there, any I don't know. We've really talked about this over the years, Dan. Any fandoms that you're a big part of? Is it Star Wars or Marvel or anything like that?
Not necessarily like those cinematic universes. I am a big like horror fan. I'm terrible with like the names all the times of like directors and stuff, but I've been watching that the Fall of the House of Usher, and
Oh,
the
yes.
guy who did that is the same guy who did The Haunting of Hill House and a couple other. I think Mike Flanagan maybe, but yeah, I've been especially with October, just coming out of
Mhm.
October, popping up a lot of horror movie and horror series content.
Oh, yeah, did you do anything, for Halloween? Are you standing at the door giving out candy on Halloween?
Yeah, we did the same. Yeah, exactly. Did the same at the door. Gave out some candy. The kids. Kyler's in college now, so he was out partying, and then my daughter's a sophomore in high school, so she was hanging out with her girlfriends, and so it was just Lindsay and I at the house, handing out candy and laughing at all the costumes. I do love seeing like little kids with their costumes and just how excited they are about Halloween. It's so fun.
It
What
gets
about you?
less fun when you've got the teenagers around because it's not it it's such a kids holiday that, like, transition of where they're like, "Yeah, I wanna go be with my friends," or, "I don't wanna dress up anymore." You don't get your own fix anymore.
Right, right. I know now I'm kind of looking forward to in a couple years when both kids are out of the house. It's like, well, maybe I want to go dress up now again. I want I want to go to some Halloween parties.
Yeah, I had Elvira on, a couple of days ago, which was so
Oh,
cool,
that's a
like,
great one.
I mean, you talk about, like, a horror icon. I'm like, how am I, like, talking to the mistress of the dark right now? And she shared that, it's been interesting over the years how, Halloween has become a little more about the adults getting dressed up and getting to have their own parties. So, you're almost there, Dan. You're almost there.
I'm jealous. Yeah, Cassandra Peterson. Yeah, Elvira. Man, she's one of my earliest memories of watching TV by myself as a little kid. I mean, I'm sure her cleavage was probably a lot of what drew me in. But I was like, who
Oh,
is
sure.
this lady? I'm like, this lady is amazing.
Well, and her story. She got started like she started dressing up and all of that because she had an accident. She had a bunch of burns on her face, and she was just trying to find a way to kind
Oh,
of fit in. Yeah.
oh wow! I did not know that. I mean, I've always thought she was just so beautiful. I didn't realize that she was yeah, badly burned.
Yeah. She was a misfit who found her way. I don't know if you read a lot, but her book, especially if you like, the horror genre, her book Cruelly Yours
Yeah.
is it's a really amazing read. It definitely takes you past the boobs, Dan.
No, I know that she's yeah, so much more than that. That's awesome. I will have to check that out because I do like to read people's stories that way. I love like autobiographies from actors, actresses, rock stars, and
Mhm.
yeah, just fascinating to see what lives they've led.
So let's talk about the special that is out. Dan Cummins trying to get better. What was it? What was it like prepping? I mean, you've kind of got this down now. How did you, decide what's going to be different for this one? How do I make this one a success?
This one it did feel different than the others where the culture had shifted so much. Around the time of when I was kind of working on it, and it just seemed like people were so on edge about so many topics, and that the country just felt so polarized that I kind of decided to theme it a little more and just address things going on in the culture in ways I didn't before. Usually in the past it was just more family stories or crazy situations I found myself involved in. Where this time it was more observational, like what are we doing here? Why are we getting worked up about this? Why are these people mad? And it definitely was a different approach for this one that I was a little bit nervous about. I think it maybe was edgier in a different kind of way than stuff in the past. You know, uh, in the past I might worry about an audience being offended if they found it too dirty or or maybe just too absurd. But this one I was making fun of certain specific belief systems and knew going in it was going to piss some people off. But I just felt it was important things to joke about.
Well, and I think during this time, it's always for me anyway, it's been, I deal with everything through humor and including death. Like if I can't laugh
Yeah,
about it, then I'm not going to get through it. But comedy has always kind of been this like soothing place for us to discuss some of those issues that have everybody screaming at each other. And for you to be able to say, at this point in my career, I am going to address it. And I don't really care if I piss some people off, because we got to find a way to talk about it and not scream about it.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And actually my wife and I had a conversation about, this stuff before I kind of, put all the material together. And it was this thing of, luckily we put ourselves in a decent situation where if everything fell apart now, we wouldn't be like wealthy, but we would be okay. We would figure things out. And artistically, I don't know, it just didn't feel right to just try to avoid a bunch of things because I thought they were going to upset people. I was like, no, I don't know. I just feel like I should talk about this. It's just like we're such in an unhealthy space in our society where too many people think that you just shouldn't talk about these things. And I'm like, no, that's the wrong mentality. We should be able, and I kind of ended the special with a story about my grandpa, being a guy who, grew up in a tiny little town, not religious. He was a Democrat, but his best friends were religious and Republican. And they would have a weekly men's breakfast and they would talk about everything, religion, politics, nothing was off limits. People get worked up, but then they would meet the next week and still respect each other and still have breakfast. And I'm like, that is what we need to get back to. And I felt like it was important to kind of share things like that.
Absolutely. And, before we go, Dan, I do want to say thank you for using your platform and the fame that you have to do so much good in the world. I mean, you have given thousands and thousands of dollars to charity through your Patreon. Is there any particular charity right now, that you're working with, or that we could, use this platform to shine a light on?
Gosh, man, I feel I feel bad not be able. We do a different one every single month, and randomly one that actually does stand out is it's so random, but the Pew Research Foundation. We live in this age of spin where it feels like most of our media is really polarized, and the Pew Research Foundation, they just do a really good job of polling people and finding out what people believe about certain things, and then presenting that information with no bias. So you can just look, go to their website and look into their information and just get factual information about what people believe in, what people are worried about, what people are thinking about a variety of topics. And it's not, spun to appeal to the left or the right. It just is. And I think, good factual information is getting harder to find. It is more important than ever.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dan. I'm so glad that we got to reconnect after all these years. I promise you're not banned from the KJ Today show. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, KJ. I'm going to be racking my brain the rest of the day trying to remember exactly what got me kicked off. That is hilarious.
I'm going to text. I know he won't remember, but I'm going to text Smiley and see if he knows, because I've been doing the same thing since the producer said you were available. I'm like, God, what did he do that was so bad? We'll figure it out.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Take care, Dan. Thanks for joining us for another celebrity interview. Of course, the KJ Today show isn't just about talking to celebs. It's about hanging out with you. Join us live on Wednesday nights for pop culture, people to know, and pets. The KJ Today show on YouTube. Subscribe and watch live Wednesday nights at 7.